So last week we learned how to begin restoring our photographs using the different retouching tools. And this week I'm going to show you how to colorize your pictures using non-destructive techniques in Photoshop so we can finish our photographs. Let's begin. I restored the right half of the picture here, at least good enough for me to do this tutorial. I'm not totally happy with this panel over here, but anyways, I made a guideline for myself right in the middle so that I can easily line up with my masks to keep the left side empty. So in order to make a guideline, you simply can drag from your ruler and place guidelines on your canvas. These do not print out in your picture. This is just in the digital file, so you can line things up, which is nice when you're trying to composite things together. And of course, you can do it from the left side as well. When you're dragging from this ruler, if you're trying to find halfway, you'll notice that it should snap. See how that's snapped to the center there? That's how you know that it's hit the center of your canvas. So that's what I did here to get this guideline there. All right. So I have my group here. So I have my group here with all of my restoration and all of my layers from that on this side. And I merged them together just so I have access to the retouched image to make selections to start my masking. So that's really why this is here. Otherwise, I would have this layer off. All right, so we're going to start adding color to this. And honestly, the best way to start first is to make a black and white layer and then add color to it. You can see here that there are presets in the black and white layer. This has to do with a dark room. Using different filters when you're exposing your image can affect the contrast, how black it can get, how light it can get. So you would start here and pick a filter that you would want to, yikes, work with if the default's not doing it for you. That's pretty good. Good range of color here. All right, so we have our black and white. And of course, you can add contrast to it, you know, with your layers or curves. Maybe we just want to make sure we get a full black. And a full white. Cool. I can see here that I have some spots here I didn't touch up very well, but I would go back and fix that if I were you guys. But let's continue. So now we're going to start adding our color. There are multiple ways that you can do this with different adjustment layers or colored layers. So we're going to review a couple options here. So we can start here with our hue and saturation adjustment layer, and you can see here there's a tick box that says colorize, and it's applying a color to the image, and you can use the slider here to go through the different colors that you may want to start with. And of course you can modify its saturation and how dark it is or light it is for that color. I'm looking at the background right now. I think I just want to make a nice kind of steel gray. All right. And I'm going to label it that. Oops. All right. And I'm going to select my image layer and use my quick selection tool to select this man here. If you use Alt, you can get this minus, or you can, of course, go up to this part of the brush here to remove part of your selection. And I'm just going to kind of go back and forth here to select him as well as I can so I can mask parts out. good enough for now. Let's see here for our background. I am going to now use my paintbrush on black over my layer mask, and I'm just going to remove the color in that spot. And of course, I'm going to keep the left side here in its damaged state. So I'm going to select it. You can see here my selection snapped to that guideline. So again, super convenient to have. And you can either use your brush to paint this in, or you can use Shift F5, which will bring up the fill pop-up. I want black, all right? I want to fill this with black. I'll push OK. And now we have that portion of our image here cleared out. I'm going to fix this part here. I'm going to use X to toggle between my paint colors. I want white to apply my mask back on. And I'm just going to try to fix some of my edges here that I don't particularly like. His ear. I'm working with a very soft brush, as you can see here, so that I don't have super cartoonish or hard edges. Try to make this look as realistic as possible. All right. Oh, it was a little too close. Okay. So now we have this background color in here. Okay, you can of course always go back in here and change that another time if for some reason you're interested in trying something else as your background color. So that's using hue and saturation. Another way to do it is using the curves tool. So, in the curves tool, you can see here that in default it is showing our RGB options. This means normally in a picture, when you're modifying the curves, it'll modify the red, green, and blue values simultaneously as you modify value here. Of course, it's in RGB, right? Because this is about working with screens. Right? Screens use RGB color, printing use CMYK. So if you use this drop down here, you can see that you can also find the individual colors to manipulate, and you can use those to add color. So here in the red curves, you can add red if you go up, and you can add green if you go down. We, of course, have green, which would mix green and magenta. And we have blue, which would be with blue or yellow, right? So you can see here how it's changing the colors. I guess I'm going to look at his jacket and make it some kind of green color. Not too green. All right, so I guess I'll use that for his jacket. You can, of course, mess with the blending modes as you're working here to see how they may interact, and there may be a blending mode here that works better than others. Color will always look pretty good. A lot of these contrast blending modes will work really well. They're a little extreme right now. Lighter is a little too low contrast for me. Darker color is not bad. And then, of course, normal. Let's do the darker color. I think that looked really good. All right, and now I'm going to mask out the parts that I don't want. I can use some of the masks that I already have to help me make my selections a little quicker. If you use Control or Command, depending on PC or Mac, and click on your mask, it will select the mask that is present, right? The white spaces and the mask is selected here. Again, I used Control or Command and clicked on that mask to make the selection. So I know here I can go right in and remove that color on the background. Oh, it's a disgusting looking background now. And now I can invert my selection. You can either do that in the drop down selection drop down menu and hit inverse, or you can hit Command Shift I or Control Shift I and it will inverse your selection. And I'm going to use that to remove this part here real quick that I don't want. Let's get a little closer and make sure my lines are good. Oh, and of course we don't want the buttons. Again, I'm using X to toggle back between white and black in my brush. Let's make sure that that's not there. Cool. And I'll take it off of these buttons here. All right, that's good enough. So now we have this color on our jacket here. Great. So those are two ways that you can add color. And add color is by using solid color adjustment layers. In this quick menu down here under the adjustment layers, which is, let's see, the fourth one in, solid color is the top option. We will select yes. And you can select a color. Maybe we'll just try to pick something for the color. And you can inverse this. I'll just open my panel up here, select inverse. I have my mask selected, invert it so I can see where I'd want to paint it, and I'll paint it in his color here. So let's zoom in, and I'll mask it in on his color. So I'm doing the biggest portion first, and then I will go in, and then I will go in with a smaller brush and make sure my edges look okay. All right. It's not perfect, but it works. If I were you, I would of course be going in here to all these nooks and crannies in this detail in the collar, and you know, getting some of these spots here maybe. I think in terms of realisticness, having it at 100% probably won't look very good, but maybe just a little bit of red in here will just add a little bit more realism to how this would look. Whoops. So I'm just masking this in here at a lower opacity. This one's got a big gap. So I would be going around doing this to all of them. And I'm just going to try to speed this up a little bit. So this isn't a super long video. Okay, so we'll say that this looks so beautiful that you can continue on. All right, so now we have a red collar. Of course, you can again go through the different blending modes to see how they can add color and blend together. I'm not a huge fan of how this looks. Let's see. Yucky. I'm going to make it red. Let's see if we can make this look any better. I don't like how that looks either. It's honestly just as ugly. I'm going to just try to increase the contrast here. I'm making an adjustment layer with levels so that I can control the value here, and I made it a clipping mask by holding Alt. You can see that little icon that pops up here, and I'm just going to try to modify how this looks a little. All right. Fine. All right. And let's see. Let's do another one. Let's do it with. Let's do the buttons. So we'll go for a gold color. Again, I'm going to invert this mask so I can see where I want this, and I'm going to mask in that color. So one of the things that I'm going to do again is select the mask that's already present, so I don't have to take forever to mask this part out. We did that right here, so again, that's Control-click, and now I have that mask selected. Bear in mind, it's selecting the red part, not the yellow part. So we're going to inverse our selection. Command-Shift-I. And I'm just going to paint, oops, make sure I'm on the right layer. And just paint that in. Okay. It's not beautiful, but we'll pretend that it is. I'm going to just fix a couple edges here. I'll do this real quick. I'm using Shift to get my Move tool up, see that hand, so that I can pan around my image. So I can try to get this detail on top of the color. And let's just make sure that our buttons are fully colored here. Alrighty, let's see what we got. So now we have our basic selection, and I'm just again going to go through my blending modes to see how these look together and see what may work. It would take me a lot of finesse to find something I like. but I like how the overlay has this shine to it. I'm going to start labeling these so that I can easily find them. All right, we got our buttons. I'm going to make another buttons layer by pushing Command J, and I want to use this to add a little more color to the image. Yeah. Okay. Fancy. Okay, and let's of course try to do some skin. This is going to be one of the hardest parts. And a way you can give yourself a favor is by getting, I just Googled, what did I Google here? Probably a skin tone color chart. And I downloaded what came up. And I'm going to open this in this file here. So I can use these to select colors I might want to try for skin tone. Okay, so you know, it can be really hard to get right with a skin tone just by going through the color picker and trying to come up with something you consider skin tone colored. So I'm going to use these to select my color. So we'll do a solid color. I'm going to invert it. And then I'm going to double click on my color again so I can reopen this color picker. And I'm just going to hover over a skin tone maybe that I'd like to test first. We can try that. And now I will mask in his face. So I'm just going to make a quick selection. I'm holding Alt for the minus. I could use some of this selection here from my background, but I'm just going to perfect this myself. Okie doke. I think I should probably make that with the red to try to get like the back of his collar looking correct. Okay, now I have his face selected here. I'll run back up to my skin tone. Whoops. Okay. And I'm going to mask that in with my white paintbrush. And I'm just going to get all of this for now. And then modify my mask in a minute. I'm going to actually go back to that and modify my mask to feather this edge a little bit so it looks a little more natural. I'm going to my selection drop-down menu, going to modify, and I'm just going to feather it. I'll do something low since I got this from the internet, 4 pixels. And now I'll go ahead and do that again. Great. And let's just make sure that this stays clean. All right. And we can go through the blending modes again to see how these colors will start interacting here. I'm really just looking at his skin. I'm not looking at his whole face and hair because I'm going to continue to modify this. So I'm just seeing how this blending mode will help. Soft light's not bad, it's just very desaturated. All right, let's do Soft light's fine. We can, of course, double click this and continue to go through the colors that are available that you gave yourself to see how they may interact or add color to the image in the way that you would like. I'm going to go for one of these. I'm going to go for the original one. And I'm going to do the same thing I did before. I'm going to make a copy, and what did I like that on? I liked it on. Yeah, that's great. I'm just going to add a little bit of color to that shadow there. Man, no, I won't. Let's see. I'll do soft light and pick a different skin tone. Let's go a little more saturated though. All right. I don't love it. Let's try one more time. He's very yellow. Okay. It's a little better, I guess. I honestly would come in here again and I do this to all of my pictures, even if they are not for color restoring. I do some color work in the shadows, highlights, and midtones. So I'm going to go into this and make an adjustment layer so the mask is just on where that skin tone is, and try to modify this color just a little bit. So that maybe I'll like it a little more. Skin. I'm just trying to reorganize my layers a little bit. We're starting to get a lot of layers. All right, so let's see. I was working on this. Well, it's not perfect, but I'll toggle back and forth, and you can see that this has just a little more dimension here. I would continue to modify this. The skin tones really are like probably the hardest challenge of this. You can see here as I toggle on and off how that modified the colors in his skin a little bit. Kind of add a little more dimension to how light would really work. Anyway, it's looking a little green now. All right. Anyway, and you know, you can bring this down a little bit if it's too much. I'm going to remove some of the skin tone color I've put here. Oops, I backspaced. I'm going to mask out parts of this. You know, where his eye is. I'm going to work at a lower opacity, again, trying to make this as realistic as possible. I'll take a little bit of color out from his lips. Let's maybe start this at 35. I think having a little bit of skin tone in the lips helps make it look more natural. It will take out the color from the eyes. And maybe just a little in the eyebrows, since, you know, we would be adding color with that as well. So with that, let's just give him some color in his cheeks and his lips. So I'll make another solid color. I'll pick something on the really warm side here. Okay. Again, I'm going to invert my mask, and now I will apply this where you'd want to see color. I'm working at a low opacity. This should be good enough, so let's see. I'm going to start. This might be a little too brown. I might want to add a little more red without making it look like makeup, of course. And I'll just throw this on. Whoops. That's nice. That's also nice. All right, so let's go back in here and fix this up a little bit. Make sure it doesn't look like there's lipstick all over his mouth. Whoops. Yeah. 30, and we'll just fix that edge a little more. I'm just going to make a quick pass. I just think it's a little too much color. Nice. Maybe just a little bit more. And you can add some on the cheeks, of course, as well. A little flush here, where that would normally be. Make sure, you know, it's realistic. You don't want it to look too clownish, right? Okay. Oh, and of course we should be taking out some of this hair color, since I would be modifying that as well. Okay. Yeah, I would just keep going through that, right? Next would be a hair color, and you just would keep going until this is done. You know, so hair. We can see how maybe that's interacting here. I'm loving how that's looking. Let's invert that and let's add it where we want it. I really like how this one is keeping the texture in the hair with the highlights and the shadows. I think it gives it this really realistic type of texture. And, you know, this part back here, of course. Maybe I would go in here and make sure his scalp doesn't look like there's hair dye on it. Right. I can maybe make that just a little darker. think his lips could still use a little work too. Maybe make them a little bit less dark. Right, and you can see how you can keep just pushing that and pulling that until you find something that you think looks realistic. We can make him some eyebrows by painting in that color here as well. Little nice big bushy eyebrows. Maybe just a couple. Oh, I don't like how that's changing the color here. But I wouldn't mind giving his eyes a little more oomph. Right? You can give him an eye color and you can keep going until it's restored. I'm still not totally convinced here with how I did this paneling in his buttons. Not a huge fan of how colorful they are and how shiny they look. But at least you get a general picture here of what I'm looking for as you are moving forward. So that's everything I was going to show you. If you have any questions, please email me anytime, and good luck.